Right there, sir. He has my backpack right there.
This is the exact moment the victim of a robbery spots the two thieves responsible, walking down the street only yards away. Little do the police know what began as a simple theft is about to take an unexpected turn.
He has a gun on him, sir, so you gotta watch it.
That may end up costing them their lives.
Up there, please! Oh, fuck! Get down! Get down!
The following is based on official police records, and some of the footage has never been seen before until now. On August 19, 2021, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Officer Mario Verbeck meets with an 18-year-old man who had just been robbed at gunpoint merely 40 minutes earlier.
You want to talk to me or not?
Oh, sorry, sir. Okay, what happened? Where did this happen at?
So, at my house, I got dropped off. I was catching a bus up from Central. I was walking, and I see these two guys. And they asked me if I wanted drugs, and I was like, no, sir, I don't. And I was walking off. And they called me again, and then they walked up to me and pulled out a weapon.
Wait, where did they walk with?
At my house, just...
Okay.
In
your house or...
Not at my house, just like...
There's a difference.
Just at the street.
So you know who these guys are?
No, sir.
You know. And how many of them were there?
Two. One was big, and he had a big shirt, a tan-ish pants. His friend, skinny. He had a black coat. He has my backpack on that says Puma. It's fairly large.
It's your backpack?
Yes, sir. Mine. Because they took it from me. They robbed me. They pulled the gun out on me, sir.
According to court documents, after being robbed, the victim walked to his mother's house nearby and told her what had happened. Together, they drove around searching for the suspects but couldn't find them. He later returned home and called a friend to help him look again. This time, they spotted both suspects and called 911.
Frank,
you understand, you guys aren't cops.
No, yeah, I understand that.
So you guys try to find them, what are you guys going to do?
I understand.
You can't hold them
That's
against
what I
their
was
will,
telling
you
my
can't
mom.
do anything.
I was trying to tell my mom that.
Unless you're going to take care of making business.
I know. I was trying to tell my mom that, and when my friend came and got me, we see them down the road, and that's when I just called.
What was in the backpack?
My PlayStation 4 Pro. That's what they robbed me for. My controller, my orange controller, and like I said, if it has the transcripts in there, then that's what would be.
Also transcripts. Okay.
The man claims that the suspects also stole his wallet and a gold chain he was wearing. However, he won't have to wait much longer as both suspects suddenly appear walking across the street from them.
Right there, sir. He has my backpack right there. Those are them. The tannish pants.
We got people stopped behind McDonald's right now.
Sir, he literally has a gun on him, sir. So you gotta watch it. Get over here and catch my shit, pussy boy. Sir, catch your ass.
Can you park?
Sir.
Officer Verbeck drives across the parking lot just as Officer James Eichel arrives. The two spot the suspect slipping behind a row of bushes near the Big O Tires auto repair shop, disappearing down a narrow alleyway. The officers begin to pursue, unaware that things were about to take a devastating turn.
Right there behind the bushes. This one's behind the bushes there.
Yeah, I see him.
They're walking behind that
Please, you need to stop! Stop! Shots fired. Listen, shots. Oh, fuck!
It's difficult to make out every detail on the body cameras, but according to court documents, after officers shouted commands, one of the suspects continued running, while the other, later identified as 27-year-old James Ramirez, suddenly turned, crouched behind a dip in the alley, and unleashed roughly 30 rounds at the officers. Amid the chaos, Officer Eichel is shot in the forearm, while Officer Verbeck takes rounds to the neck and arm, leaving him critically wounded. As the gunfire dies down, Eichel begins to retreat, but Verbeck is unable to move.
Shot twice. Go, come on. Shot twice. I got hit. Come on, buddy. 43! Call 43, Jackie, give me a tourniquet! 43! Way up there on my arm. Way up there on my arm. Easy. We need 43. Yeah. I'm so lightheaded.
Just lay it.
I just need.
Just
Let go of that arm.
okay.
Tell them to come. Send it to AFD, family thrift store.
Just lay down here.
Hold on. I can't lay on that arm.
No, don't lay on the arm. Lay on me. It's okay. And you
Tell the ambulance to come here.
Okay.
They're not coming because they don't think it's safe.
With the help of a public service aide and nearby witnesses, Officer Eichel is assisted to the nearby parking lot, waiting for EMS to arrive. However, Officer Verbeck isn't so lucky.
I can't match it!
Still in the middle of this nightmare, more gunshots echo from the opposite end of the alley, where just moments earlier, Officer Harry Gunderson has arrived, trying to locate James before he can hurt anyone else.
They ran? Adam 532, he's gonna be behind. Adam 532 is gonna be behind Federico's. Get down! Get down!
Officer Gunderson seeks cover as the gunfire continues to echo through the parking lot. Meanwhile, in the alley, a nearby resident, later identified as Johnny Garcia, notices Officer Verbeck still on the ground, unable to move. According to court documents, Johnny jumps over his backyard fence to assist the downed officer.
Can you over here? Should I leave the gun and stuff? Would you want the gun? My gun? Is this your gun right here? Okay.
I think you're there.
Okay, let's go.
You still can't see the gun.
Here. Protect him. Come on, come on. Come on, come on.
So we need fire to the 34. On Summer, launch is all.
Right here, right here, right here. Yo, yo, yo.
Here, Kemper.
We're in the parking lot of the
I'm up on the
Napa.
top. Just chill out. Hey, guys. Hey. Hey, he's right here. He's right here. Come on, come on.
Action Z is AFR 56 hit.
Need help here. I don't know.
Does anyone have AFR 56?
Yeah, sit on the car.
Kemper. Out the deal.
Do me a favor, get this.
Hold on.
Unload it, sir.
I'm on Z.
Yeah? Okay.
We're going to be following.
I'll sit on it.
55. Have a filter out northbound. One to move. Or southbound. One to move.
Stay with me, okay? Talk to me, Mark. Talk to me. Talk to me. Hey.
Officer Verbeck is carefully seated on the sidewalk, where fellow officers work to stabilize his injuries and keep him conscious. Back on the other side, things are still heating up, with James showing no signs of backing down.
Drop the gun!
Go!
Fuck.
During the last barrage of gunfire, glass from a shattered windshield sprays into Officer Gunderson's face, leaving him with a small shard in his eye as he continues to fire back.
Still got the gun. He's still pointing the gun at us. Shots fired. Still shooting. He's hit. He's pointing the gun towards Federico's. He's reloading.
As the firefight continues, EMS finally arrives on the other side to help both downed officers.
Get to TOT and let them know.
Ambulance just arrived. An officer down on the curb.
Hey, buddy. Hey, this is Andrew, okay? Just so you know. Hey, are you recording? Okay, we're recording, right? Okay, we're gonna keep that camera on here. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Hey, you're okay, boss.
Michael, you're gonna be okay. You're doing good.
Both Officer Eichel and Officer Verbeck are transported by ambulance to the University of New Mexico Hospital for emergency treatment. More officers close in on the scene, and among them is Sergeant Sean Kinney, who has no idea just how close he's about to come to taking a fatal hit.
Item 523, shots fired. Just be careful. Yes, sir. 10-3.
Dutch Brother parking lot. Need 82. Behind Dutch Brothers. Drop the gun!
Shut down, south, down, 10-3.
He said I can't see the gun. Do not reach for that gun! Can you see the gun, Sarge?
I can't clear his hand.
Looks like it might be in front of his stomach. I can't tell.
I can't tell either. Roll away from the gun! We will get you medical help! Where's our other suspect?
I don't know.
10-4.
James begins rolling on the ground, yelling for help as additional officers move in to secure him.
Get on your stomach. No. Roll him over. No. Get him in cuffs. Let's go.
Run like this. Look in the front.
Roll around.
Roll over!
Roll around.
Hold on, man.
Sit down.
I can't breathe if I lay down.
There's still one outstanding.
What?
There's still one outstanding. We don't know where he is. I don't know.
See boogie that way.
Okay.
You get hit, your eyes all jacked up.
Yeah, I fucking got glass in my eye.
At some point during the firefight, Sergeant Kinney was shot directly in the chest. But thanks to the bulletproof vest he'd put on just moments earlier, he escaped without serious injury. When officers search James, they find the victim's wallet in his pocket, but court documents don't mention what happened to the other stolen items. James was transported to the hospital where he was treated for gunshot wounds to his chest, thigh, leg, and arm, but ultimately surviving his injuries. All 4 officers who were hit during the encounter also made a full recovery. James Ramirez faced multiple charges, including 3 counts of aggravated battery upon a peace officer, armed robbery, conspiracy to commit a felony, possession of a firearm by a felon, resisting or obstructing an officer, along with federal firearm violations. However, before his trial could proceed, on February 15, 2022, he was found unresponsive and later pronounced dead at the Cibola County Correctional Center, with the cause of death listed as unknown. As for the second suspect involved in the robbery, they were never caught, and their identity remains a mystery to this day.
It's told the jury, contradicting the local coroner. The skull fractured like an eggshell because it hit a hard surface. The road. This was an accident. The jury was confused. Dueling experts. Dueling realities. Dueling realities. Dueling realities. And then there was Roxy. Dana's best friend took the stand. Dana told me Toby beat her. Roxy testified. She said he raped her that night before we went out. The courtroom gasped. Brittany felt sick. It was a lie, she knew it in her bones. Toby was flawed, but he wasn't a rapist. An XC, she knew it a rapist. Roxy was muddying the waters, trying to protect Atkins, the man she claimed was just a casual acquaintance, but who police records suggested she had dated. The trial ended in a deadlock. A hung jury. Brittany stood in the hallway, shaking. Dobson looked at her. Chapter 7. The box. The second trial. For the retrial, Dobson made a decision that would haunt everyone in the room. Photographs were not enough. Diagrams were not enough. When Dr. Barnett took the stand this time, she brought a box. The courtroom went silent. Brittany gripped her aunt's hand until her knuckles turned white. Dr. Barnett reached into the box and lifted out the skull of Dana Rosendale. It was stark, white, and terrifyingly human. The jurors recoiled. This wasn't a picture. This was a person. Here, Dr. Barnett said, pointing to the fractures with a gloved finger. Impact 1, Impact 2, Impact 3. This is the base of the skull. To get this injury, her head had to be bent forward and struck from above. She mimed the motion of a pool cue, striking the back of a head. The defense fought back, bringing Spitz again, bringing up the missing evidence, the lost car, the lost clothes. But the skull remained on the table, a silent witness. The closing arguments were emotional. Dobson pointed at Atkins. The jury deliberated for hours. Twilight fell over Toledo. Finally, the verdict. We find the defendant, Russell Atkins, guilty of murder. Brittany collapsed. She sobbed, a sound that had been building in her throat for 30 years. Toby, sitting beside her, put his head in his hands and wept. "Thank you, God," he murmured. "Thank you." Atkins was led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of shock. He was sentenced to life in prison. Brittany went to the cemetery that evening. She touched the cold stone of her mother's grave. "We did it, Mom." Part 5. The Hollow Gavel, Chapter 8. The Technicality, η φίλια 18. Justice, Brittany learned, is not a straight line. It is a pendulum. 2 years after the conviction, the phone rang. It was the prosecutor. His voice was flat, defeated. Brittany. The Ohio Court of Appeals had issued a ruling. They weren't saying Atkins was innocent. They weren't saying the evidence was bad. They were overturning the conviction based on pre-indictment delay. The logic was cold and legalistic, because the state waited 34 years to charge Atkins, and because during that time key evidence, the car, the clothes, was lost and witnesses had died, Atkins could not receive a fair trial. His due process rights had been violated. "He's getting out?" Brittany asked, her voice small. "He's already out," the prosecutor said. "He's going home." Brittany dropped the phone. The world tilted. After the digging, the fighting, the tears, the skull in the box, he was free. Not because he didn't do it, but because it took too long to catch him. Epilogue. The quiet victory. Brittany sat on her porch. It was autumn. The leaves were turning the color of fire. She looked down at her hand. She was wearing Dana's ring. She thought about Russell Atkins, fishing on his boat, a free man. She had done the impossible. She had taken a file marked undetermined and forced the world to call it murder. She had cleared her father's name. The town no longer whispered that Toby was the killer. She had reunited with the mother she never knew, holding her bones, fighting for her memory. She wasn't a victim anymore. Brittany stood up and looked out at the street. "I know the truth," she whispered to the wind. "And so does he." She went inside to her children, leaving the ghost of Hilian and Adio of Dadio outside, finally at peace. The Silent Passenger, based on the true story of Dana Rosendale and Brittany Stork. Prologue. The Last of the Summer Lights. September 5, 1982, Northwood, Ohio. The night did not smell like death. It smelled of ozone, stale Miller High Life, and the acrid, hairspray, thick perfume of the Southside Roxy. It was the scent of Toledo trying to forget the rust accumulating on its edges, the smell of a Labor Day weekend where the heat hung low and heavy, refusing to break for autumn. Russell Atkins sat in the driver's seat of his car, the engine idling with a rough, uneven purr that vibrated through the steering wheel. He was a big man, heavy-set, with the kind of bulk that allowed him to move through a crowd without asking permission. He was a bouncer, a biker, a man who occupied space with an air of casual entitlement. In the backseat sat two girls. They were the kind of girls who made the Roxy glow young, vibrant, caught in that fragile, electric space between teenage innocence and adult consequence. One was Roxy, loud and laughing. The other was Dana Rosendale. 19 years old. She was a sparkler burning down to the wire, beautiful in a way that seemed to invite trouble simply because the world couldn't help but want to touch her. She was wearing her clogs, the wooden heels clicking against the floor mats. She had a daughter at home, a baby named Brittany, but tonight Dana wasn't a mother. Tonight, she was just a girl who had missed the last bus. "You sure you don't mind, Russ?" Roxy asked, leaning forward, her breath sweet with wine coolers. "Ain't no trouble," Atkins grunted, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. She was quiet, staring out the window at the passing streetlights, her reflection ghostly against the dark glass. She looked tired. Atkins put the car in gear. There was a story about the passenger door, a latch that didn't catch right, a handle that needed to be finessed. They dropped Roxy off first. The car idled at the curb, the headlights cutting through the suburban gloom. "Call me tomorrow," Roxy said, scrambling out. She leaned back in, looking at Dana. "You okay getting home?" Dana nodded, a small, tired smile touching her lips. "Bye, Russ. Thanks for the ride." "Yeah. See ya." The door slammed shut. The sound was final. Heavy. Now. It was just the two of them. Atkins pulled away from the curb, the tires crunching on gravel before hitting the asphalt of Tracy Road. The silence in the car changed. With Roxy gone, the air grew tighter. The buffer was removed. Dana shifted in the passenger seat. He could see the line of her throat in the harsh glow of the dashboard lights. "You tired?" he asked. His voice was gravel, low and rumbling. "A little," Dana said. She didn't look at him. She kept her eyes forward, watching the road unwind like a gray ribbon into the dark. "Just want to get home to the baby." They were heading south. The city limits of Toledo fell behind them, replaced by the darker, tree-lined stretches of Northwood. The houses became sparser, the pools of light from street lamps further apart. It was a lonely road, a road where things could happen unseen. Atkins' hands tightened on the wheel. He thought about the night. He thought about the way the men at the club looked at Dana. He thought about Toby, her boyfriend, that firecracker of a man, violent and possessive. "You and Toby fighting again?" Atkins asked. It wasn't really a question. Dana stiffened. "That's none of your business, Russ. Just asking." "You look tense." "I just want to go home." The car picked up speed. The speedometer needle trembled upward. The wind rushed past the windows, a mournful howl that drowned out the radio. What happened next would be debated for 30 years. It would be dissected by lawyers, reimagined by detectives, and haunted by a daughter who was currently sleeping in a crib miles away. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a movement, a sound that wasn't the engine. Perhaps a hand reached out. Click, the sound of a latch giving way. The rush of air was sudden and violent. The passenger door, the one with the trick to it, swung open into the black night. The interior light flickered on, illuminating Dana's face for a split second. Her eyes were wide, not with sleepiness, but with a sudden, absolute terror. And then she was gone. There was no scream. Just the physics of a body moving from motion to stasis against the unforgiving friction of the earth. Atkins slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, tires screaming, the rear end fishtailing before coming to a halt on the gravel shoulder. The silence that rushed back in was deafening. The engine stalled. The crickets in the tall grass screamed in the sudden quiet. Atkins sat there for a moment, his hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He opened his door and stepped out into the humid night. The red taillights bathed the road in the color of blood. He walked back, his boots heavy on the pavement. She was lying in the grass, just off the shoulder. She was curled up, her knees to her chest, like a child sleeping. But the angle was wrong. The stillness was wrong. He stood over her. He didn't touch her. Not yet. He looked up and down the road. Empty. No headlights. No witnesses. Just the moon and the trees and the telephone poles watching. Russell Atkins made a choice then. He got back in his car, turned it around, and drove toward the nearest house to bang on the door and play the role of the Good Samaritan. I found a girl, he would say. I was just driving by, and I found a girl. 30 years of silence began that moment. Part I. The Ghost. Chapter 1. The Glass. 1993, Oregon, Ohio. Brittany Stork grew up in a house made of love and silence. To the outside world, her childhood was a Norman Rockwell painting. Oregon, Ohio, was the kind of place where weekends were measured in softball innings and church bells. It was a comfortable town perched on the edge of Lake Erie, where the wind sometimes carried the smell of fresh water and sometimes the industrial tongue of the refineries. Brittany was a dancer. She lived for the feeling of the wooden floor beneath her feet, the discipline of the ballet barre, the way music could organize the chaos of the world into something beautiful and predictable. She felt safe. She felt cherished. She called the woman who made her breakfast Mom, and the man who drove her to practice Dad. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon in kindergarten. The classroom smelled of paste and wet mittens. Mrs. Gable, a teacher with kind eyes and a soft sweater, knelt beside Brittany's desk. Brittany. Honey, she said, her voice pitched low so the other children wouldn't hear. We're making cards for Mother's Day. I was wondering, do you want to make one for your grandmother? Brittany paused, her crayon hovering over a piece of construction paper. My grandma? You mean my mom? Mrs. Gable hesitated. It was a hesitation that Brittany would remember for the rest of her life. It was the crack in the glass. Well, yes. But, you know that your grandmother is raising you, right? Because your mommy went to heaven. The world tilted. The bright primary colors of the classroom turned gray. Brittany felt a hot, stinging sensation in her eyes. No, she whispered. That's not true. Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. Brittany went home that day with a hollow ache in her chest. Is it true? Brittany demanded, her 5-year-old voice trembling with betrayal. Are you my grandma? The woman sighed, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The look on her face wasn't surprise, it was resignation. Come here, Brittany. That afternoon, sitting on the floral couch in the living room, Brittany learned the first layer of the truth. She learned that Mom was indeed her grandmother. She learned that her real mother was named Dana. She was beautiful, her grandmother said, pulling a photo album from a high shelf. She loved you more than anything. Brittany looked at the photograph. The woman in the picture had feather-cut blonde hair, typical of the late 70s. She was smiling, holding a baton, wearing a marching band uniform. She looked vibrant. What happened to her? Brittany asked. It was a car accident, her grandmother said softly. A terrible accident. She was coming home, and she got hurt, and God took her. An accident. The word was safe. An accident was no one's fault. An accident was lightning striking, or a tire blowing out. It was tragedy without malice. But as Brittany grew older, the word began to feel thin. It started with whispers. Oregon was a small town. People talked in the grocery store aisles. They talked in the bleachers at softball games. That's Dana's girl. Looks just like her. Poor thing. To die like that. Do you think he did it? The pronouns were never defined. By the time Brittany was 12, the silence in the house had changed texture. Tell me about her, Brittany would beg. Deb was different from the grandparents. Deb carried a hardness in her eyes, a grief that hadn't softened with time. She was the baby of the family, Deb said. She was outgoing, wanted to own a boutique. She trusted people too much. Who was she with when she died? Deb would look away. She was getting a ride home. From a club. And the car crashed? No, Deb said, her voice tight. She fell out. Brittany lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling. She tried to picture it. A car door opening. A girl falling. It didn't make sense. You don't just fall out of a car. You lock the door. You wear a seatbelt. Unless you're trying to escape. Unless you're pushed. The accident theory was a blanket that didn't cover her feet. Chapter 2. Microfilm and Monsters. 1996. The Toledo Public Library. Adolescence is a time of rebellion, but for Brittany, her rebellion was a quest for history. She was 13, armed with a learner's curiosity and a burning need to know the face of the ghost that haunted her mirror. She skipped softball practice and took the bus to the main branch of the library. It was a cavernous building, smelling of old paper and floor wax. She navigated to the archives section, where the history of the city was spooled onto reels of microfilm. Can I help you find something? The librarian asked. I'm looking for an obituary, Brittany said. September 1982. Dana Rosendale. The librarian threaded the machine. The screen glowed blue, then white. Brittany turned the crank, the dates flying by in a blur of black and white text. Reaganomics. The Cold War. The Labor Day Parade. And then, there it was. The Kainea year-old found on road, dies. Brittany's heart hammered against her ribs. She leaned in, reading the grainy text. Dana Rosendale, the Kainea of Oregon, died yesterday of head injuries sustained Sunday morning. She scanned down. Instead, she found a quote from the Lucas County coroner. Dr. Stephen Harris stated the death is ruled. Brittany stopped breathing. Undetermined. Foul play. The article continued. It mentioned a man named Russell Atkins. It mentioned he was the driver. It mentioned he claimed she fell out. But the coroner wasn't buying it. The coroner said the injury's massive trauma to the right side of the head didn't match a simple fall from a moving vehicle. It looked like a baseball bat. It looked like a beating. Brittany sat back in the hard wooden chair. The library was silent, but in her head there was a roar. They lied. Her grandparents, her family. They had told her it was an accident to protect her, but in doing so, they had buried the truth along with her mother. She hit the print button. The machine whirred, spitting out a damp, warm copy of the article. Brittany folded it carefully and put it in her backpack. It felt heavy, like she was carrying a weapon. She went home and waited for her father to call. Toby Stork was not a constant presence in her life. He was a jagged edge in the smooth picture of her upbringing. He had been Dana's boyfriend. He was Brittany's biological father, but he was often absent, often in trouble vacations at the state penitentiary for theft, for fighting. When she saw him next, she didn't hug him. She threw the paper at him. Read it, she commanded. Toby, looking older than his years, rough-hewn and tattooed, picked up the paper. You knew, Brittany said. You knew she might have been murdered. Toby looked up. His eyes were wet. Brittany, did you do it? She asked. No, Toby said, and for the first time, Brittany heard a tone in his voice she hadn't recognized before. It wasn't defensiveness, it was defeat. I loved her. She was the love of my life. No, I didn't kill her, Britt. Then who did? She pointed to the name in the article. Russell Atkins? Why isn't he in jail? Avrende, Pone, Deserva, Si Mustaf, Trase, Katasi. Because nobody cared, Toby said bitterly. because she was just a girl at a club and I was just a biker and Atkins. Atkins kept his mouth shut and got lucky. The police, they didn't have enough. They let it go. They let it go? It's a cold case, Brittany. It's over. Brittany snatched the paper back. She looked at the grain of the photo of her mother. It's not over, she said. I'm not letting it go. At 13. Brittany Stork declared war on time, on the justice system, and on a man named Russell Atkins. Chapter 3. The Squeaky Wheel. 2002. 2012. 2012. The years moved fast, but the case moved slow. In fact, it didn't move at all. Brittany grew up. She graduated high school. She fell in love. She became a mother herself. When she held her own daughter, looking down at the tiny, fragile life in her arms, the horror of what happened to Dana hit her with renewed force. Dana had left an 8-month-old baby behind. Dana had been stolen. In 2012, Brittany was 29 years old. She was serving jury duty at the Lucas County Courthouse. Every day, she walked past the prosecutor's office. Every day, the stone in the river felt heavier. On her lunch break, fueled by an impulse she couldn't name, perhaps it was Dana whispering from the dark, she walked into the office. "Can I help you?" The receptionist asked. "Pula, I want to talk to someone about a murder," Brittany said. "My mother's murder. 1982. She was passed around. She was given phone numbers. She was told, 'Honey, that was a long time ago. Memories fade. Evidence is lost.' But Brittany had a weapon. She was unrelenting. She called until she wasn't just a file number. She was a nuisance, and then a problem, and then a priority. She eventually reached an investigator named Doug Kinder in Wood County, where the body had been found. Kinder was a no-nonsense man, but he listened. He pulled the file. It was thin, painfully thin. "What do we have?" Kinder asked his colleagues. "Not much," came the reply. "The car is gone, scrapped years ago. The pool cue found near the scene? Gone. Lost in an evidence purge. The clothes? Gone. What about the witnesses? The bouncer, Atkins, is still around. Still living in Northwood. Runs a charter boat now. Pillar of the community type, according to some. Domestic abuser, according to others." Kinder looked at the autopsy report from 1982. "Undetermined. We can't prosecute on undetermined." Kinder told Brittany over the phone. "So how do we get that?" Brittany asked. "We have to ask her," Kinder said. "Ask who?" "Dana. We have to bring her up. The concept of exhumation is violent. It is a reversal of the natural order. We bury our dead to rest. To bring them back into the light is a desperate act." Brittany stood in the cemetery on a cold, grey morning. The backhoe tore into the earth. She watched as the vault was lifted. She wasn't crying. She was vibrating with a fierce, protective anger. "Don't break her," she whispered. As the crane lifted the concrete lid, as the crane lifted the concrete lid, her Aunt Deb stood beside her. "Are we doing the right thing?" Deb asked, trembling. "Disturbing her? She hasn't been resting, Aunt Deb," Brittany said. "She's been waiting." The casket was transported to the Lucas County Coroner's office. This time, technology was on their side. They had forensic anthropologists. They had 3D imaging. Dr. Diane Scala Barnett, the coroner, cleaned the skull. She didn't look at the skin or the hair that was gone. She looked at the bone. The bone told a story that the flesh had hidden. There wasn't one crack. There were 3 distinct impact sites. A fall from a car is a chaotic event, but it usually results in one major impact, the head hitting the pavement. This skull had been struck once, twice, 3 times. The base of the skull was crushed in a way that suggested the head was bent forward, exposed. This isn't a fall, Dr. Barnett told Kinder. With one word written on a new death certificate, the stone at the bottom of the river began to roll. Chapter 4. The Arrest. 2013. Russell Atkins was older now. He was no longer the imposing bouncer of the Roxy. He was a man with grey in his beard, a man who took kids fishing on Lake Erie. He had friends who swore by him. He had convinced himself that the past was a closed book. When the unmarked cars pulled up to his house, he didn't run. Russell Atkins? Kinder asked. Yeah. What's this about? It's about Dana Rosendale. Atkins blinked. A flicker of something crossed his face, not fear, exactly, but annoyance. The annoyance of a man who thought he had swept the dirt under the rug effectively, only to find someone had lifted the rug. I told the police everything back in Ovdodadiu, Atkins said. She fell out of my car. The autopsy says different, Russ, Kinder said. They cuffed him. As they walked him to the car, Atkins looked at the suburban street, the neatly trimmed lawns. He looked like a man who had gotten away with it for 31 years and couldn't quite comprehend that the clock had finally run out. When Brittany got the call, she was in her kitchen. We got him, Kinder said. Brittany dropped the phone. She sank to the floor, sobbing. She dialed her father, Toby. Dad, she choked out. They arrested Atkins. On the other end of the line, the rough, hardened biker, the man who had been whispered about and accused for decades, broke down. Thank God, he wept. Thank God. But an arrest is not a conviction. And the legal system is a machine that grinds fine. Russell Atkins was not going to go quietly. He had a lawyer. He had money raised by his loyal friends. And he had the greatest defense attorney of all time. 30 years of lost memories. 30 years of lost evidence. The battle had just begun. Partai. The trials. Chapter 5. The War of Papers. 2014, 2015. The wheels of justice do not spin. They grind. For Brittany Stork, the euphoria of the arrest soon dissolved into the agonizing slow-motion reality of the legal system. The period between the handcuffs, clicking on Russell Atkins' wrists, and the opening of the courtroom doors was a purgatory of motions, hearings, and delays. In the prosecutor's office, Paul Dobson and Gwen Howe-Geber stared at the calendar on the wall. Outside, the northern Ohio weather shifted from the humidity of summer to the biting gray of winter, mirroring the mood inside. They knew what they were up against. They had a long-shot case. It's a ghost case, Dobson murmured, flipping through the thin file. The defense team, led by Neil McElroy, had filed a motion that struck at the very heart of the prosecution's effort. The legal argument was sound, even if it felt cruel to Brittany. How can a man defend himself when the evidence that might exonerate him has turned to dust? They're saying we waited too long. Investigator Kinder explained to Brittany during one of their frequent updates. They're saying because the car is crushed, because the pool cue is gone, because the original photos are missing, Atkins can't get a fair trial. But that's not our fault, Brittany argued, her voice rising. He's the one who lied for 30 years. Why does he get rewarded for hiding the truth until the evidence disappeared? That's the argument we're going to make, Kinder assured her. But the judge has to buy it. The defense pointed out that there was no smoking gun that had suddenly appeared, no new DNA hit, no fingerprint technology that cracked the case. They argued that the forensic anthropology tools used to examine Dana's skull in 2013 were available in the Hila 19 of teens. Why did you wait until the memories of the witnesses had faded into the mist? Brittany sat in the gallery for these hearings, watching Atkins. He sat at the defense table, looking like a grandfather who had been inconvenienced, not a killer facing life in prison. He looked aggrieved. He felt the system was handling it incorrectly all the way around. Finally, the ruling came down. The judge would allow the trial to proceed. The delay, while significant, did not automatically disqualify the state from seeking justice. The lay, atotaleni pun. Brittany exhaled a breath she felt she had been holding for 2 years. The road to the courthouse was open. But the road was icy, and the destination was far from certain. Chapter X. The Theater of Law, January 2000X, Wood County Courthouse. The winter of the 2000X settled over Bowling Green, Ohio, with a heavy, suffocating blanket of snow and ice. The sky was a perpetual slate gray. The wind whipped around the marble columns of the Wood County Courthouse, stinging the faces of anyone brave enough to enter. Brittany Stork walked up the steps, her boots crunching on the salt and snow. She was 33 years old, now 14 years older than her mother ever got to be. She had vowed to be there every second of the trial. She had to be. She was the anchor, keeping Dana's memory from drifting away. Inside, the courtroom was a study in divided loyalties. On the left side of the gallery, huddled together for warmth and solidarity, were Russell Atkins supporters. They were an eclectic mix: bikers in leather vests, locals who knew him as the big teddy bear who cooked for fish fries, friends who had raised money for his legal defense with benefit concerts. "We've got to show these people that Russell would never do that," they whispered to one another. On the right side sat Brittany and her Aunt Deb. They held hands, their knuckles white. "Just breathe," Deb whispered. The bailiff called the court to order. The state of Ohio versus Russell Atkins. Prosecutor Gwen Haugebers stood up. She was sharp, focused, aware that she had to paint a picture for the jury without all the paint in the tube. The defendant, Russell Atkins, did purposely cause the death of Dana Rosendale, she began. Her opening statement was a promise. She would use common sense and science to prove that Atkins was a liar and a killer. She told them about a man who created a story about a tragic accident to cover a brutal beating. Then Neil McElroy stood for the defense. "This is a 1982 case," McElroy said, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. He looked at the jury, planting the seeds of doubt immediately. "You're going to hear that law enforcement lost or destroyed several pieces of evidence." He listed them like a grocery list of incompetence. The map of the scene. "Gone," McElroy said. "All of it. How can you convict a man when the puzzle pieces have been thrown away?" Brittany watched the jury. They were ordinary people, pulled from their lives to judge a night that happened before some of them were born. She saw them nod slightly at the defense attorney's words. A knot of fear tightened in her stomach. "They don't believe us," she thought. "It's slipping away before it even starts." Chapter F. Shifting Sands. The prosecution's case. The trial moved into the testimony phase, and the prosecution strategy became clear. Use Russell Atkins' own words against him. If they couldn't produce the murder weapon, they would weaponize his lies. Detective Bob Bratton, now retired and gray-haired, took the stand. "Tell us about your interactions with Mr. Atkins," Prosecutor Dobson asked. Bratton recounted the shape-shifting narrative of the bouncer. "Story number 1, Bratton said, holding up a finger. He stated he was just driving south, saw something in the roadway, and stopped to help a good Samaritan. The jury listened. "But that changed?" Dobson asked. "Yes. When we pressed him, we got story number 2, Bratton continued. He admitted Dana was in his car. He claimed his passenger door was defective. He said he heard a click. The door opened, and she fell out." Dobson paused for effect. "Did you investigate this claim about the door?" "I did," Bratton said. "I sat in that car myself. I'm a big guy. I leaned against it. I opened and closed it. I didn't see anything wrong with that door. And did he stick with story number 2? No, Bratton said. A ripple of murmuring went through the courtroom. He tried to explain the massive trauma to the back of her head, Bratton said. He told us she must have hit a mailbox. He said there were mailboxes all along that road. Were there mailboxes at the scene, detective? No, Bratton said flatly. There were 3 large trees. No mailboxes, no posts. Nothing she could have hit her head on like that. Brittany watched Atkins at the defense table. He was shaking his head slightly, whispering to his lawyer. He looked like a man who genuinely believed his own fabrications. A man who had told the lie so many times it had calcified into his version of the truth. Investigator Doug Kinder took the stand next. He described walking the scene himself with a measuring wheel. He described how Atkins' claim that he was just turning around at the corner didn't make sense. The corner was the has to fit away from the body. It was a story made up as he went along, Kinder testified. But the defense was ready. On cross-examination, they hammered the police on their failures. You inspected the car door? The defense attorney asked Bratton. Yes. Is that in your report? Bratton hesitated. No, it's not. So, 30 years later, we just have to take your word for it that you checked the door? There's no written record. I remember doing it. Bratton insisted. Memories fade, detective, the lawyer said. Then came the pool cue. It was the ghost weapon. A pool cue had been found near the scene in Hilianagosan of Dodadeo. Prosecutors believed Atkins used it to beat Dana. But the cue was gone, lost in an evidence purge. You can't tell this jury that pool cue came from Russell Atkins' vehicle, can you? No, the witness admitted. And tests back in Hilianagosan showed no blood on it? That is correct. Negative for blood. Brittany felt like she was watching a tennis match where the ball was her mother's soul. Every point the prosecution scored with Atkins' lies, the defense volleyed back with the police's incompetence. Chapter 8. The betrayal. The witness. The courtroom doors opened and a hush fell over the gallery. Roxy, she was Dana's best friend. Brittany had grown up hearing about Roxy, knowing that Roxy and Dana were supposed to raise their children together. But Roxy walked past Brittany without looking at her. She walked to the stand and sat down, her face hard. She had requested not to be filmed. I miss her, Roxy said. The prosecutor asked her about the night at the club. Roxy described the faulty door in vivid detail. You had to kind of lift it up to close it, Roxy told the jury. Brittany stared at her. Why are you helping him? She thought, screaming internally. He was the last one with her, but Roxy wasn't done. She had a story to tell, one that would shift the gravity of the entire room. Did Dana talk to you about her boyfriend, Toby? Yes, Roxy said. She told me, anything that happens to me, it's Toby. The air was sucked out of the room. Brittany froze. Toby, her father, was not in the courtroom, but his presence suddenly loomed large and dark. Did she tell you he was violent? Yes, Roxy said. She looked at the jury. She told me he beat her, and that he raped her. She looked at the jury, and that he raped her. She looked at the jury. A gasp ran through the gallery. Brittany felt the blood drain from her face. She came out of the bedroom that night, Roxy continued, tears welling. Then Roxy dropped the final bomb. Toby showed up at the club that night. He was looking for her. The implication was clear. Toby had followed them. Toby had found Dana on the side of the road after she fell out of the car. Toby had finished the job. It's a Roxy story. The prosecutor would later call it, dismissing it as total crap. There was no other witness who put Toby at the club. Toby had an alibi, he was at home, asleep. But the seed was planted. The defense didn't need to prove Toby did it. They just needed to make the jury wonder if he could have. Reasonable doubt was a monster that fed on what-ifs. Brittany looked at the woman who was supposed to be her mother's best friend. Roxy was crying, insisting she believed it was a freak accident. Insisting. He was just a guy at the club, Roxy insisted. I wouldn't cover for him. Brittany felt a surge of nausea. She was fighting the complex, messy web of relationships that had defined the Canyon of East Toledo. When the court recessed, Brittany rushed into the hallway, her hands shaking. She needed to call her dad. She needed to hear his voice, because for a terrifying second, listening to Roxy, she had wondered. Chapter 9. Father. The hallway, the fluorescent lights of the courthouse hallway buzzed like angry insects. Brittany dialed the number, her fingers fumbling over the keypad. The fluorescent lights, her fingers fumbling over the keypad. Brit? Toby's voice was rough, anxious. He was waiting for updates. How's it going? What did she say? She said you raped her, Dad, Brittany whispered, her back pressed against the cold plaster wall. Roxy. She told the whole courtroom, you raped Mom, and beat her right before she left. Silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Dad, that's a lie, Toby said. His voice wasn't angry, it was crushed. That is a goddamn lie, Brittany. I loved her. We fought, yeah. I was a rough guy. But I never did that. She said you were at the club. She said you followed her. I was home, Toby shouted, the frustration breaking through. I was asleep. Why is she doing this? Why is she trying to pin this on me after 30 years? Brittany closed her eyes. She remembered the stories about her dad, the prison time for assault, the domestic violence charges in his past. He wasn't a saint. He was a rough and tumble character, Canam to evil Knievel. But she also remembered the man who had wept when Atkins was arrested. The man who had encouraged her to dig up the truth, even though he knew it would put a bullseye on his back again, if you did this. Brittany started, her voice breaking. Brittany, listen to me, Toby said, his voice dropping to a desperate plea. I didn't want her pushed to the side like she never mattered. I wanted this trial. Why would I want this investigation if I killed her? It was the logic that saved him in her eyes. A guilty man buries the past. A guilty man tells his daughter to let it be. Toby had done the opposite. He had been her champion. I believe you, Brittany said. Don't let them win, Brit. Don't let Roxy's lies cloud the truth. Atkins was the one in the car. Atkins is the one who changed his story 3 times. I know, she said. She hung up the phone. She looked at the courtroom doors. Inside, the defense was high-fiving. They had successfully muddied the waters. They had introduced a new villain. Brittany walked back into the arena. She glared at the back of Russell Atkins' head. My dad didn't kill her, she thought. And neither did the pavement. You did. But proving it to 12 strangers when the science was about to become a war zone was going to be the hardest thing she had ever done. The Unquiet Grave, based on the true story of Dana Rosendale and Brittany Stork. Prologue. The Geometry of Silence. September 5, 1982, Tracy Road, Northwood, Ohio. The road was a scar cut through the cornfields, dark as spilled ink. It was the dead hour, shortly after 3 Adriada in the morning, where the city of Toledo bled into the lonely expanse of Wood County. The silence here was heavy, broken only by the hum of crickets and the occasional whine of tires on asphalt. Russell Atkins drove his car through this darkness. But out here, there were no lights, just the stabbing beams of headlights spilling onto the desolate road. Then, the geometry of the night shattered. According to Atkins, he was just driving. But minutes later, a young woman, 19 years old, vibrant, a mother was lying in the grass. When the paramedic, Ron Billings, arrived, the scene defied the physics of a traffic accident. He expected the chaotic mess of a body thrown from a moving vehicle, torn clothes, road rash, limbs at awkward angles. Instead, he found Dana Rosendale lying on her right side in the fetal position, her knees drawn up to her chest, as if she were sleeping. Billings knelt beside her. The grass was wet, but it was the lack of other injuries that haunted him. Her clothes were intact, not disheveled. Her clog-style shoes were still near her feet, unscuffed. In his experience, bodies in motion tumble and scrape. They do not land softly. They do not land softly. They do not land softly. It told me, from what I seen, that somebody beat her up. Billings whispered to the empty air. Dana was taken to the hospital, her face severely swollen, a massive trauma to the back of her head. She never woke up. She died 6 days later, leaving behind a silence that would last for 30 years. The coroner at the time looked at the evidence. He checked a box on the death certificate that would haunt Dana's daughter for decades. Undetermined. Not accident. Not homicide. Just a question mark carved into history. Chapter 1. The Girl in the Glass. 1990, Oregon, Ohio. Childhood is a kingdom where adults are the walls and the roof. You don't question the structure, you just live inside it. For Brittany Stork, the structure was solid. There were lawnmowers on Saturdays, church on Sundays, and softball games under the buzzing floodlights of summer. She was 5 years old, sitting in her kindergarten classroom, when the roof began to leak. The teacher looked down at her, a strange pity in her eyes. Brittany froze. She went home that afternoon, the safe world of Oregon, Ohio, suddenly feeling like a stage set. She confronted the woman she called Mom. The truth came out like a slow exhale. The woman was her grandmother. Her real mother was Dana Rosendale. She had died in a car accident when Brittany was 8 months old. Accident. The word was a smooth stone, easy to swallow but hard to digest. As Brittany grew, she became a mirror of the ghost she never knew. She was a little clone of Dana. They both loved to dance. But along with the resemblance came the whispers. By the time Brittany was a teenager, the town's silence had begun to crack. People knew, or they thought they knew. It was like everybody knew my mom had gotten killed, Brittany realized. However, it was, nobody could deal with my mom's death. At 13, fueled by a mixture of teenage rebellion and a daughter's grief, Brittany rode her bike to the library. She didn't know how to be a detective, but she knew how to read. She pulled the microfilm reels, the plastic smelling of vinegar and old dust. She scrolled past the news of Hélène Tinov until the headlines screamed at her. The Kainea-year-old found on road. Brittany stared at the screen. The coroner had been unsure. He couldn't rule out foul play. I was so mad that everyone lied to me, Brittany said, the anger hot in her chest. Her family had told her it was an accident. She printed the article and mailed it to her father, Toby. Toby was a rough man. In and out of prison, a man the town whispered about. Some people said he killed Dana. Brittany wrote a note on the article. What's up with this? She told him she hated him, but she didn't stop there. She became a hunter. Something inside of me just wouldn't stop, she said. She was knocking on doors, ringing phones, making enemies. She was a child, searching for a ghost, unaware that the ghost was about to wake up. Chapter 2. The Squeaky Wheel. 2012. 30 years is a long time, evidence rots. Memories fade like old Polaroids left in the sun. But rage doesn't age. 30 years is a long time. Brittany Stork was a mother herself now.